The small house on the quiet street was full of new sounds. The soft cries of a newborn filled the rooms, mixing with the gentle footsteps of the mother, Sarah, and the careful movements of the father, Amir. The family had waited for this moment for months, preparing every corner of the house for the baby. Tiny clothes were folded neatly in drawers, soft blankets lay ready in the crib, and toys sat in colorful baskets. But there was another presence in the house that watched everything silently, patiently, and with a strange kind of wisdom. That presence was Max, the family's dog. Max was a large dog with brown fur that shone in the sunlight and eyes that always seemed to understand more than anyone thought. He had been with the family for 5 years, since he was a small puppy. He knew every corner of the house, every smell, and every routine. He knew when Sarah was sad, when Amir was tired, and when something unusual happened. But this was different. This was something new. This tiny human, barely bigger than Max's head, had arrived, and Max sensed the change in the air. He did not rush, he did not jump, he did not bark. He simply watched. From the first day, Max waited near the nursery door. He would lie on the soft rug outside, his head resting on his paws, ears alert at every sound. Sometimes he would whine softly, a sound that was neither fearful nor demanding, just curious and patient. Amir noticed this. He watched Max carefully, feeling a mix of pride and concern. "He's too big," Amir said to Sarah one evening. "I don't want him to scare the baby, or worse, hurt him by accident." Sarah smiled, brushing Amir's hand gently. "Max has been part of this family for years. He knows how to be gentle. I think he just wants to meet the baby." Amir was not so sure. He had always been cautious. He remembered stories of dogs accidentally hurting small children, even when they loved them. He wanted everything to be perfect. So he made a rule. No one could let Max into the nursery yet. He would wait until he felt the time was right. This made Max wait too, but he did not complain. He did not rush. Every day he returned to the same spot near the nursery, watching the tiny human from a distance. The first week passed slowly. Max watched as Sarah fed the baby in the mornings, as Amir changed diapers with careful hands, and as the baby cried and slept and sometimes smiled in tiny bursts. Max never approached, but he always stayed nearby. He learned the baby's sounds, the rhythm of cries and coos, the tiny movements of hands and feet. Sometimes the baby would stop crying when Max was near the door, as if the dog's presence comforted him in ways Amir did not yet understand. Neighbors began to notice Max's patience. Mrs. Hassan, who lived next door, would often wave as she walked by. "Your dog is very calm," she said one morning. "He waits at the door and never bothers the baby. I have never seen a dog so patient." Amir nodded, but he still felt unsure. He wanted Max to meet the baby, but he needed to be sure it was safe. Inside the house, Max's life had changed. He no longer slept on the couch as often. He spent more time near the nursery, lying in positions that allowed him to see the baby through the tiny gap under the door. He learned the new smells, the soft scent of baby lotion, the warmth of freshly washed blankets, and the faint scent of milk. Everything smelled different, and Max noticed. The baby, small and fragile, seemed to notice Max too. When the baby woke in the morning and heard the soft sound of paws moving, the tiny eyes would open wide, and sometimes a small smile appeared. Max would pause, tilt his head, and watch. There was a strange connection forming, though neither Amir nor Sarah could yet understand it. Max seemed to understand the baby's needs without instructions. He responded to cries not with fear or excitement, but with calmness. When the baby fussed, Max would sit quietly nearby, sometimes whining softly as if saying, "I am here. Do not worry." By the second week, the routine had settled. Sarah and Amir began to notice small signs of understanding between Max and the baby. During feedings, Max would sit patiently near the nursery, his eyes focused. Sometimes, when the baby cried, Max's whining seemed to calm him, and the crying stopped sooner than expected. Amir watched this one evening, rubbing his chin thoughtfully. "Maybe he really does understand," he said to Sarah. She smiled and nodded. "I think he does. He's always been special." Despite Amir's careful rules, Max's patience never wavered. He did not try to jump into the crib, did not bark loudly, did not rush. He simply waited, lying quietly, watching, learning. Each day his presence became part of the baby's life, a quiet protector and friend. The family could not yet let him fully meet the baby, but they began to appreciate his loyalty and intelligence. One morning, as sunlight spilled into the nursery, the baby reached out a tiny hand toward the door. Max, sensing the gesture, leaned closer, resting his head near the small gap. The baby giggled, a sound that filled the room with joy. Sarah gasped softly and Amir's eyes widened. "Do you see that?" Sarah whispered. "He knows him already." Max's tail wagged slowly, a gentle motion that showed his happiness without excitement. He understood the bond forming and he respected the rules set by Amir. Evenings were the hardest for Max. That was when Amir and Sarah would put the baby to sleep and leave the nursery. Max would sit outside listening to the soft breathing of the sleeping child. Sometimes he would gently nudge the door with his nose, a soft gesture of affection and curiosity. Amir noticed but said nothing. He knew Max was waiting for the right moment, just as he was waiting for the right moment to allow it. Visitors came to the house and were amazed by Max's behavior. Friends and family commented on his calmness and patience. "I cannot believe he waits so quietly," said Amir's sister one afternoon. "I have never seen a dog act like this." Amir smiled but remained cautious. He wanted to be sure everything would go perfectly when the time came. The days turned into weeks. Max's patience never faltered. He learned every sound, every movement, every little rhythm of the baby's day. He became a part of the routine without being allowed inside the nursery. He was silent but always present, a guardian without needing words. The baby's presence seemed to bring out a new gentleness in him, and the family began to trust that one day, when the time was right, Max and the baby would meet in a moment that would change everything. One afternoon, Sarah knelt by the nursery door, speaking softly to Max. "You've been so patient. Max, soon you will meet him. I know you'll be gentle." Max tilted his head, his brown eyes full of understanding. He seemed to nod as if agreeing. The connection between dog and baby had grown without a single touch, without a single rush, only through patience and observation. Amir watched from the hallway. His heart was full of pride and nervousness. He had been cautious and he had seen Max wait and behave perfectly. Maybe it was time to consider that Max could be trusted. But he waited, just a little longer, wanting the perfect moment for the first meeting. Outside, the wind moved through the trees, carrying the soft sounds of the neighborhood. Inside, the house was quiet except for the baby's soft breathing and Max's gentle presence near the door. Weeks had passed since the baby arrived, and Max had waited patiently all this time. The moment of their first meeting was coming closer, and the house seemed to hold its breath, waiting for the magic to happen. Max rested his head on his paws, eyes half closed, still alert. He had waited without complaint, without excitement, only with patience and love. The baby slept peacefully, unaware of the silent guardian nearby. Amir and Sarah exchanged a look, knowing that soon everything would change. Max had waited weeks for this moment, and when the time came, no one could guess the bond that would form. The story of patience, love, and understanding had begun. Max had shown that loyalty could wait, that love could be quiet, and that sometimes the greatest guardians are the ones who wait for the right moment. In this quiet house with a tiny baby and a large brown dog, something extraordinary was quietly unfolding. The first chapter of their story had ended, but the real adventure, the meeting that would change everything, was just about to begin. The days after the baby's arrival passed slowly, yet each day brought small wonders. Max continued his quiet vigil near the nursery door, never once rushing, never once breaking the rules that Amir had set. His presence had become as much a part of the house as the walls and the furniture. The baby seemed to notice Max more now, reacting in subtle ways that Amir and Sarah could not explain. Sometimes the baby would stop crying when Max whined softly outside the door. Other times, tiny hands would reach toward the floor, as if searching for the familiar warmth of fur. Amir watched these moments carefully. He wanted Max to meet the baby, but he also wanted to be sure. "I need to test him," Amir said one morning, rubbing his chin as he watched Max lie patiently near the door. Sarah looked at him with gentle eyes. "He's already proven himself. Look at how he waits. Look at how he watches." Amir nodded but remained thoughtful. He knew that patience alone was not enough. The first meeting had to be perfect. Over the next few days, Amir began small tests. He would open the nursery door slightly, just enough for Max to see the baby, and then close it quickly. Max would sit quietly, tail wagging slowly, watching with calm interest. He did not try to enter, he did not bark, he did not panic. He simply observed. Amir's heart began to fill with hope, but he still held back, wanting more proof. One afternoon, the baby began to cry loudly, louder than usual. Max reacted instantly. He sat up, ears alert, and tilted his head. The baby's cries seemed to reach him in a way no other sound did. Max did not bark or jump. Instead, he whined softly, a sound that was different from fear or excitement. It was a sound of concern. Sarah entered the room quickly, holding the baby. "Max is amazing," she whispered to Amir. "He knows the baby is upset." Amir nodded slowly, watching Max lie down again, never leaving the spot near the door, never breaking the rules. The neighbors noticed Max's behavior too. Mrs. Hassan came over with her grandson one afternoon.
"I have never seen such a patient dog," she said.
"Most dogs would be running around, barking, trying to get attention. But your Max waits like he understands something very important." Amir smiled, still cautious, but he could not deny what he had seen. Max was not like other dogs. There was something special in his quiet loyalty. Inside the house, the baby began to recognize Max as more than just a presence outside the door. When the baby was calm, sometimes he would reach his tiny hand toward the floor, searching for the familiar brown fur. Max would respond by gently resting his head near the gap under the door. The baby would giggle and Max would wag his tail slowly. These small moments were full of meaning, though Amir and Sarah could not yet fully explain them. Amir decided it was time for another test. One evening, after the baby had finished feeding, Amir picked him up carefully and held him near the slightly open door. Max was lying in his usual spot. Amir called his name softly. "Max, come here." Max stood immediately but did not rush into the nursery. He approached slowly, sniffing the edge of the door, tail wagging in gentle motion. The baby looked at Max with wide eyes reaching out. Max paused, then lowered his head slightly, letting the baby's tiny hand touch his fur. Sarah watched with a soft smile. "He's perfect," she whispered. Amir nodded, feeling a mix of relief and pride. Max had passed the test. He understood the rules. He understood the baby's fragility, and he understood his own role. He was ready, even if Amir was not fully ready yet. The following days were filled with careful observation. Amir would watch Max during feedings, during diaper changes, and even during nap time. Max never left his post near the door. He seemed to know the baby's schedule, the soft rhythm of sleep and wakefulness, the subtle changes in mood. When the baby cried at night, Max would whine softly, lying near the door as if offering comfort. Sometimes the baby would quiet immediately, calming in response to Max's presence. Amir and Sarah began to believe that Max was not just a pet, but something more. A guardian, a friend, a protector who understood without words. One morning, Amir noticed something unusual. The baby had rolled slightly in the crib, his tiny hand brushing the edge. Max was immediately alert, standing at attention. His eyes focused on the baby, his body tense but controlled. Amir watched, holding his breath. Max did not jump or bark. Instead, he leaned his body slightly toward the crib, positioning himself carefully as if to block any danger. The baby looked at Max and smiled, and Max wagged his tail, calm but watchful. It was a small moment, but Amir understood its significance. Max's patience was matched by intelligence and awareness. Sarah laughed softly that evening. "He's more than a dog," she said, stroking Max's fur gently. Max leaned into her hand, eyes soft. "He's part of the family already," she added. Amir smiled, feeling his heart swell. He had doubted at first, but now he could not deny the truth. Max had waited weeks without complaint, showing loyalty and understanding beyond what anyone could expect. Visitors came to the house and were amazed at Max's behavior. Children from the neighborhood would peek through the windows, pointing and whispering. "Look at the dog," one child said. "He waits by the door and never moves." Adults nodded in agreement, commenting on the rare patience and gentleness of Max. Amir listened quietly, proud but still cautious. He knew that patience alone was not enough. The first meeting had to be perfect, safe, and memorable. Inside the nursery, the baby grew more aware of Max's presence. Tiny fingers would reach toward the floor. Small coos would escape the lips, and Max would respond each time with gentle nudges of his nose, soft whines, or careful tail movements. The bond was forming silently, without a single full meeting. Amir and Sarah realized that sometimes the greatest connections happen without touch, through observation, understanding, and quiet patience. Amir decided on one more test. He would leave the nursery door slightly open while he stepped outside, just for a moment. Max was nearby, lying quietly as always. Amir held his breath and watched. The baby started to fuss, turning his tiny head. Max immediately stood, approached the edge of the door and rested his head carefully near the baby. The crying slowed. The baby reached out and touched Max's fur. Max wagged his tail slowly, letting the baby explore without moving too much. Amir felt a warmth in his chest. Max was ready. He understood, and he had proven his loyalty and patience beyond doubt. That night, Amir reflected on everything he had seen. Max had waited weeks, never breaking the rules, never rushing, never showing impatience. He had responded to the baby's needs, sensed danger, and provided quiet comfort. Amir realized that Max was not just a dog. He was a friend, a protector, and a part of the family in a way that was deeper than words could describe. Sarah joined him, holding the baby in her arms. "Soon," she whispered, smiling. "Soon they will meet for real." Amir nodded, feeling both excitement and nervousness. He knew that when the time came, Max and the baby would form a bond that could not be broken. The waiting had been long, but it had been worth it. Patience, love, and understanding had created a foundation for something extraordinary. Max lay in his usual spot, eyes half closed but alert. He had passed every test, proven every time that he could be trusted, and waited patiently for the perfect moment. The baby slept in the crib, unaware of the loyal guardian nearby, but already sensing his presence in subtle ways. The quiet house seemed full of anticipation. Everyone knew that soon. The moment of first contact would arrive and everything would change. The story of patience and trust had reached a new chapter. Max had passed the tests, the family had learned to trust him, and the baby had begun to respond to his gentle presence. Weeks of waiting had strengthened the bond, and the moment of their true meeting was drawing near. Inside the quiet house, under the soft glow of the evening sun, Max rested his head on his paws, alert and ready. Amir and Sarah watched from the hallway, holding the baby carefully. The next step would be the most important one. Max had waited, the baby had noticed, and the family had faith. The time for the first true meeting was close. Patience had shaped the bond. Loyalty had proven itself, and love, quiet and steady, had grown stronger each day. The small house on the quiet street held a secret of wonder, waiting to be revealed in the next chapter of their story. The day finally arrived when Amir felt it was time. The small house on the quiet street seemed almost to hold its breath. Weeks had passed since the baby's arrival, and Max had waited patiently outside the nursery every day. He had learned the baby's schedule, recognized the tiny human sounds, and responded to every cry, coo, and movement with careful attention. Amir knew that Max had proven his loyalty, his patience, and his intelligence. Now the time had come for them to meet. Sarah was in the nursery, holding the baby gently in her arms. The soft morning light filtered through the curtains, painting the room in warm colors. Amir stood near the door, heart pounding with anticipation. Max lay in his usual spot just outside, his head resting on his paws, eyes bright and alert. The large dog had sensed something important in the air. He lifted his head, ears perking up, tail moving slowly. He seemed to know that this day was different. Amir opened the nursery door just a little wider than before, careful not to startle anyone. "Max," he said softly, "come in slowly." Max rose to his feet. His large paws made soft sounds on the wooden floor. He approached cautiously, moving step by step, eyes fixed on the tiny human in Sarah's arms. The baby, sensing movement, opened wide eyes and let out a soft coo. Max stopped for a moment, tilting his head, watching the baby's expression. Sarah whispered, "It's okay, Max, you can meet him." Amir held his breath. Max took another step, closer to the crib, and lowered his head carefully. The baby reached out with tiny fingers, touching Max's soft brown fur. Max remained still, letting the touch happen gently. His tail wagged slowly, a sign of calm happiness. The baby giggled, a sound that filled the room with joy. The first few minutes passed quietly. Max sniffed the baby gently, keeping his movements careful and controlled. He leaned in slightly, allowing the baby to explore his fur without rushing. Amir and Sarah watched with wide eyes, amazed at how perfect Max's behavior was. The dog seemed to understand that this tiny human was fragile, that every movement mattered. The baby reached out again, touching Max's nose lightly. Max stayed still, tilting his head, and the baby laughed, delighted by the soft, warm fur beneath his fingers. After a few moments, Max lowered himself to the floor, resting his chin gently near the baby. He did not try to climb onto the crib. He did not bark or jump. He simply lay close, sharing space and warmth, showing calm and loyalty. Amir felt a deep sense of relief. Weeks of waiting, tests, and careful observation had led to this perfect moment. Max had passed every challenge. He had proven that he could be trusted. The baby's reactions were even more remarkable than Amir or Sarah expected. Whenever Max moved closer, the baby smiled or reached out. Whenever Max lay quietly, the baby would coo softly, sometimes falling asleep with Max nearby. It was as if the dog's presence provided comfort that no one else could. Sarah whispered, "I think he already understands him." Amir nodded, feeling a sense of wonder. Max and the baby were forming a bond without words through trust, patience, and gentle attention. Over the next hour, Amir and Sarah allowed Max to explore the nursery carefully. Max moved slowly around the crib, sniffing the air and watching the baby's reactions. He occasionally nudged the baby's tiny hand with his nose, a soft gesture of friendship. The baby giggled and cooed in response, reaching for Max's fur. Max wagged his tail in slow motion, careful not to scare the baby. Careful to show nothing but gentle affection, Sarah picked up a small toy and placed it near Max. The dog sniffed it and then nudged it gently toward the baby. The baby laughed, reaching for the toy, and Max watched, tail wagging slowly, clearly pleased. It was a small, ordinary moment, but it was full of meaning. Max had waited weeks for this, and now the bond was forming in ways that were clear to everyone in the room. Amir decided to test the bond slightly. He moved a little closer to the crib, speaking softly to Max. "Do you understand, Max? You must be gentle." Max looked up at Amir with understanding eyes, then returned his gaze to the baby. He lowered his head, resting it near the crib again, and wagged his tail slowly. The baby reached out, touching Max's ears and nose. Max remained calm, showing perfect patience. Amir could not help but smile. Max was more than a dog. He was a guardian, a friend, and a part of the family in a way that was deeper than words could describe. Time seemed to slow in the nursery. The sunlight shifted through the window, highlighting the gentle interaction between dog and baby. Max lay near the crib, watching every movement, responding to every sound. The baby's tiny hand would touch Max, and Max would nudge it gently, showing affection. Occasionally, the baby would babble, and Max would tilt his head as if listening carefully. The connection was extraordinary. Amir and Sarah noticed every detail. Every smile, every gentle touch, every wag of the tail spoke volumes. They realized that Max had waited for the perfect moment, and now that moment had arrived. The bond between dog and baby was natural, unforced, and full of love. Max had waited patiently for weeks, showing loyalty and understanding beyond what anyone could expect. Now he was rewarded with the first full meeting, and the joy in the room was clear. As the morning passed, Max became more confident. He moved around the crib carefully, letting the baby touch him, sometimes nudging the baby's tiny hand with his nose. Always gentle, always patient. The baby laughed and babbled, responding to Max in ways that showed trust and recognition. Amir felt tears of happiness welling up. He had always known Max was special, but now he saw how extraordinary Max truly was. Sarah smiled and whispered, "I think this is just the beginning." Amir nodded, holding the baby close. "Yes, it is. Max has waited so long. Now they are friends for life." Max wagged his tail slowly, resting his head near the crib, aware of the baby's presence, aware of his new role as protector and companion. By midday, the baby had grown tired and fell asleep in Sarah's arms. Max lay nearby on the floor, eyes half closed but still alert. The quiet room was filled with a sense of peace. The first meeting had been a success. Max had shown calmness, patience, and understanding. The baby had responded with trust and affection. Amir and Sarah could not stop smiling, amazed at the bond forming before their eyes. Even small incidents proved Max's loyalty. When the baby shifted slightly in Sarah's arms, Max adjusted his position carefully, watching every movement. When the baby sneezed, Max sniffed gently and wagged his tail. It was a small, ordinary moment, but it revealed a deep understanding between dog and human. Amir knew that Max would always be a guardian, watching over the baby with care and love. The neighbors noticed the changes too. Mrs. Hassan, who often visited, commented, "I can see how much he loves him. That dog is extraordinary." Amir smiled, thinking about the weeks of waiting and tests. Max had proven himself in every way. The bond between dog and baby was natural, strong, and full of love. As the day ended, Max lay near the crib, watching the baby sleep. Amir and Sarah stood by the door holding hands. "He waited for the right moment," Sarah whispered. "And now it's perfect," Amir nodded. "He's part of the family in a way we could not imagine before." Max lifted his head, giving a soft, happy whine as if agreeing. The baby stirred slightly, stretching tiny arms, and Max nudged him gently with his nose. It was a perfect first meeting, a moment full of joy, trust, and love. Weeks of patience had led to this day. The small house on the quiet street felt warmer, happier, and full of life. Max had waited patiently, understood his role, and now the bond was real. Amir and Sarah realized that Max was more than a dog. He was a friend, a guardian, and a family member. As the sun set outside, casting a golden glow through the windows, Max lay peacefully near the crib, the baby sleeping beside him. Amir and Sarah watched, hearts full of gratitude and happiness. They knew that the first meeting was only the beginning. Max and the baby would grow together, share countless moments, and form a bond that would last a lifetime. The story of patience, loyalty, and love had reached a milestone. Max had waited weeks for the perfect moment. The baby had responded with trust and joy. The bond was formed, quiet but powerful, full of understanding beyond words. In that small nursery, a lifelong friendship had begun, and the house seemed full of magic and warmth. Max closed his eyes briefly, still alert, still watching over the baby. Amir and Sarah stood nearby, smiling softly, knowing that patience and love had created something extraordinary. The first meeting had been perfect. The bond between dog and baby was real, unbreakable, and full of promise. In the quiet house under the warm sunlight, Max had found his purpose. The baby had found a friend, and the family had discovered that sometimes the greatest connections are formed through patience, trust, and love. Days passed since Max's first meeting with the baby. Each day seemed to bring something new, small moments that amazed Amir and Sarah. Max had proven himself to be gentle and patient, but now, the bond between dog and baby began to grow in ways that no one had expected. The quiet house on the street felt full of life and warmth, and every sound, every movement, every small gesture seemed to strengthen the connection between them. Max spent more time in the nursery than ever before. He no longer just waited at the door. He would lie near the crib, careful not to disturb the baby, watching every movement with soft, understanding eyes. The baby responded to Max in ways that were remarkable. Tiny hands would reach for Max's fur when he was upset. Small giggles would escape the baby's lips when Max nudged a toy or leaned closer. It was as if Max understood the baby's moods, and the baby, in turn, recognized Max as a friend and protector. Amir watched one morning as the baby began to fuss during feeding. Max, lying nearby, lifted his head and tilted it slightly. He whined softly, not in fear, but in a way that seemed to say, "I am here. It will be okay." The baby quieted almost immediately, turning his tiny eyes toward Max. Amir could not believe it. The baby, who had been fussy for hours, was now calm, soothed by the dog's presence. Sarah smiled, brushing her hand over Max's head. "He knows," she whispered. "He really knows." The family began to notice other small signs of Max's intelligence. One afternoon, Amir accidentally left the baby's blanket near the edge of the crib. Max immediately noticed. He nudged the blanket carefully with his nose, moving it back toward the center. The baby, sensing the motion, reached out and grabbed the blanket, smiling as if he understood what had happened. Amir and Sarah exchanged amazed looks. Max was not only gentle, he was protective. He understood danger in subtle ways. Even during playtime, Max's presence was remarkable. Sarah would lay the baby on the soft rug, placing toys around him. Max would sit nearby watching, occasionally nudging a toy closer so the baby could reach it. Sometimes the baby would roll toward Max and the dog would gently move a paw to guide him safely. Every movement, every small action showed understanding and care. Amir realized that Max was more than a pet. He was a guardian, a teacher, and a friend. Neighbors began to notice the change too. Mrs. Hassan came over one morning and smiled at the scene in the nursery. "I have never seen a bond like this," she said. He watches over the baby and the baby trusts him completely. Amir nodded, still a little amazed himself. It was true. Max's loyalty and understanding went beyond ordinary behavior. The baby responded to Max in ways that no one could teach. It was a connection built on patience, love, and quiet observation. One evening, a small accident nearly happened. The baby, curious and active, had rolled slightly toward the edge of the crib while Sarah stepped out for a moment. Max noticed immediately. His ears perked up, his eyes focused, and he moved closer to the crib. He nudged the baby gently with his nose, alerting Amir, who rushed back into the room. The baby was safe, and Max wagged his tail slowly, satisfied that the tiny human was unharmed. Amir felt a deep sense of gratitude. Max had not only waited patiently, but had also learned to protect the baby, anticipating danger even before it happened. Sarah laughed softly that evening as she held the baby in her arms. "He's not just a dog," she said. "He's a part of the family, a true guardian." Amir nodded, holding Max gently by the collar. "He's more than we ever expected," he said. Max leaned into Amir's hand, eyes soft and trusting. The baby cooed, reaching toward Max, who responded with a gentle nudge. It was a perfect circle of trust, love, and understanding. The following days were filled with small adventures. Max would lie beside the baby during naps, respond to every sound, and even react when the baby's mood changed. Sometimes the baby would babble in the morning, and Max would tilt his head as if listening carefully. Other times, the baby would reach out to grab Max's fur, and Max would let him, showing patience that amazed everyone. It was a bond that grew stronger every hour, every day. Amir began to notice something extraordinary. Max seemed to understand not only danger but also emotions. One afternoon, the baby became fussy, tears welling in his eyes. Max immediately moved closer, resting his head near the baby's tiny hand. The baby stopped crying almost instantly. Amir and Sarah stared in awe. The dog, through quiet presence and gentle nudges, could calm the baby's fears, soothe his discomfort, and bring happiness. No words were spoken, but the communication was clear. Even the simplest activities became meaningful moments. During feeding times, Max would sit nearby, watching carefully, his eyes alert for any sign that the baby needed comfort or help. When the baby played on the floor, Max would guide him gently, nudging toys closer or keeping the area safe. Every action showed intelligence, care, and loyalty. Amir realized that Max was not only teaching the baby about trust, but also modeling patience and gentleness in a way that no human could. One morning, Amir decided to test Max's understanding. He placed a small toy near the edge of the rug, just out of the baby's reach. The baby reached for it, rolling slightly toward the edge. Max immediately nudged the baby gently, guiding him safely toward the toy. The baby grabbed it and laughed, a joyful sound that echoed through the house. Amir smiled, amazed. Max's actions were deliberate, careful, and full of understanding. He had learned to protect, guide, and nurture the tiny human, all through observation and patience. Sarah noticed other small signs, too. The baby seemed calmer when Max was nearby, responding to his presence with smiles, coos, and laughter. The baby reached for Max's fur when upset, and Max would respond with gentle nudges. Even during moments of sleep, the baby seemed comforted by Max lying nearby. The family realized that the bond was growing stronger every day, deepening in ways they could not have imagined. One afternoon, Amir sat in the living room watching Max and the baby through the nursery window. Max had rolled onto his side, letting the baby explore his fur, gently nudging the tiny hands when needed. The baby giggled and cooed, clearly enjoying the interaction. Amir felt a warmth in his heart. Max had become a true guardian, a friend and a part of the baby's life in ways that no one could teach. The house seemed full of energy and joy. Max's presence was constant, calming, and protective. The baby responded to him in ways that were natural and trusting. Sarah often commented on the quiet magic in the house. "It's amazing how he understands," she said. "He knows what the baby needs before we do." Amir nodded, realizing that Max's patience, loyalty, and intelligence had created a bond that was extraordinary. Even during simple chores, Max played a part. When Sarah carried the baby from one room to another, Max followed carefully, watching every movement. When Amir prepared the baby's food, Max sat nearby, alert and ready. The baby's reactions to Max were always positive, smiles and laughter greeting the dog wherever he went. It was clear that the connection between dog and baby had become unbreakable, built on trust, patience, and quiet love. One evening, Sarah held the baby while Amir stroked Max's fur. The baby reached out for Max, tiny fingers brushing over his soft ears. Max nudged the baby gently, letting him explore. The scene was peaceful and full of warmth. The family felt grateful for the bond that had grown quietly over weeks, strengthened by patience and understanding. Max had become more than a pet. He was a teacher, a protector, a friend, and a part of the baby's life in a way that was deep and meaningful. The next morning, the baby rolled slightly while lying on the soft rug. Max was immediately alert. He nudged the baby carefully with his nose, keeping him safe. Amir and Sarah watched, amazed at the dog's understanding. It was not just instinct. It was awareness, care, and love. Max had learned to protect the baby in ways that went beyond ordinary behavior. He had become a true guardian. As days passed, Max's presence continued to bring calm and joy. The baby laughed more, slept better, and responded to life with curiosity and happiness. Max's gentle guidance, patience, and care had shaped the baby's world in ways Amir and Sarah could never have imagined. The bond was strong, growing every day and full of promise for the future. By the end of the week, Max and the baby were inseparable. Max lay near the crib during naps, responded to every movement and sound, and even anticipated the baby's needs. The baby reached for Max instinctively, cooed in response to his presence, and laughed at the dog's gentle nudges. Amir and Sarah could not stop smiling. The small house on the quiet street had become a place of warmth, trust, and love, and Max had played the most important role in creating it. Patience, loyalty, and love had built something extraordinary. Max had waited weeks for the first meeting, and now the connection was growing in ways no one could have predicted. The baby had found a guardian, a friend, and a teacher. Max had found a companion, someone to love and protect. The quiet bond between them was powerful, full of understanding, and filled with the promise of a lifetime together. The small house on the quiet street was filled with light and warmth. Weeks had passed since the baby's arrival, and Max had become more than a pet. He was a guardian, a companion, and a true part of the family. Each day, the bond between the baby and Max grew stronger, deeper, and more meaningful. Amir and Sarah watched with pride and amazement as the two developed a silent, unbreakable connection. Max had learned the baby's routines completely. He knew when the baby was hungry, when he was tired, and when he simply needed comfort. Even small sounds like a sigh or a soft coo would alert Max immediately. He would move closer, resting his head near the baby or nudging a hand gently, ensuring the baby felt safe and calm. Amir often observed these moments quietly, realizing that Max's understanding was beyond instinct. It was intelligence, loyalty, and love combined. One morning, Sarah placed the baby on the soft rug for playtime. Max immediately lay down beside him, eyes alert but calm. The baby reached out for Max, patting his soft fur and giggling happily. Max responded with gentle nudges, letting the baby explore without ever overwhelming him. The small interactions were filled with trust and joy, and Amir felt his heart swell. Max had waited patiently for weeks, proving himself, and now he was fully a part of the baby's life. During feeding times, Max was always nearby, watching carefully. He never jumped or tried to interfere. Instead, he offered silent support. When the baby became fussy, Max would nuzzle him gently, helping to calm him. When the baby laughed, Max wagged his tail slowly, clearly happy to be part of the joy. These simple moments became routines of love, teaching the baby about trust, gentleness, and the comfort of loyal companionship. One afternoon, a small but important event occurred that proved Max's devotion. The baby had rolled too close to the edge of the crib while Sarah stepped into the kitchen to prepare milk. Max noticed immediately. He moved with precision, placing his head and body carefully near the baby, blocking any risk. Amir, who had been in the hallway, noticed Max's actions and rushed in. The baby was safe, entirely unharmed, and Max wagged his tail slowly, satisfied that he had protected the child. It was a quiet heroism, but it meant everything to the family. Amir realized that Max was not only loyal but also capable of understanding responsibility. He had learned from weeks of waiting, observation, and gentle training to protect the baby without causing fear or disruption. Every day, the dog grew more aware of the baby's needs, responding in ways that amazed everyone. Sarah often commented on Max's intelligence and care. "He knows before we do," she said softly. "He watches, waits, and understands." "It's incredible." Amir nodded, knowing it was true. Max was extraordinary. Playtime became a shared adventure between Max and the baby. Sarah would place toys on the floor, and the baby would crawl or roll toward them, sometimes reaching for Max's nose or ears. Max would guide the baby gently, nudging toys closer or using his paw carefully to keep the baby safe. Laughter filled the house, the walls echoing with joy. Amir often sat nearby, watching, amazed at how the simple bond between a dog and a child could transform the energy of a home. Even during nap time, Max was a constant presence. He would lie near the crib or the rug, eyes alert, tail resting gently. The baby seemed to sense his protection, sleeping more peacefully with Max nearby. Occasionally, the baby would stir and Max would nudge him softly, helping him adjust without waking completely. These small, quiet acts of care became part of the daily rhythm of the house, creating trust and comfort that could not be taught by words alone. Neighbors noticed the bond too. Mrs. Hassan, who lived next door, often watched from her window. "I have never seen a dog act like this," she said one morning. "He protects, teaches, and comforts. And the baby loves him. It is beautiful to see." Amir smiled quietly, proud of Max's behavior. Max was no longer just a dog. He had become a teacher of patience, love, and loyalty. One evening, Sarah prepared a small blanket for the baby and laid him on the rug. Max immediately positioned himself beside the baby, nudging the blanket gently with his nose to ensure it was safe and comfortable. The baby giggled, patting Max's fur. Amir watched silently, filled with gratitude. It had taken weeks of waiting, observation, and careful guidance, but Max had fully become part of the family, a silent hero in every sense. Small adventures continued. On a sunny morning, Amir and Sarah took the baby and Max to the garden. Max walked carefully beside the baby's stroller, stopping occasionally to sniff the air or watch the baby's reactions. The baby reached out from the stroller, giggling at Max's movements. The dog responded with gentle nudges and soft tail wags, ensuring the baby was engaged and safe. Passers-by smiled at the unusual pair, noticing the deep bond between them. Inside the house, Max continued to act as a teacher. When the baby reached for toys, Max guided him with gentle nudges. When the baby cried, Max responded immediately, offering comfort with his presence, his body warmth, and his soft whines. The family noticed that the baby's moods improved significantly when Max was nearby. Laughter, coos, and happy movements became more frequent. The baby was learning from Max, even without words, discovering trust, patience, and gentle care. One evening, Amir reflected on everything he had seen. Max had waited weeks before the first meeting, then spent days understanding the baby and now acted as a constant guardian. "He is more than a dog," Amir said to Sarah softly. "He is a part of this child's life in ways I cannot explain." Sarah nodded, holding the baby as he reached for Max's ears. "He is family," she said simply. Max nudged the baby gently, tail wagging, eyes full of understanding. Even during small chores, Max proved his loyalty. When Sarah carried the baby from the nursery to the living room, Max followed carefully, eyes alert for any danger. When Amir prepared food, Max sat nearby, watching every movement. The baby reached out toward Max instinctively, cooing happily. The bond between them was natural, formed over weeks of patience and love. One afternoon, a small challenge arose. The baby had grabbed a small toy and rolled slightly toward the edge of the rug. Max noticed immediately. He nudged the baby gently, positioning himself to ensure safety. Amir and Sarah watched amazed. Max had learned to anticipate risks and protect the baby without causing fear or panic. His actions were precise, careful, and filled with love. As weeks turned into months, the bond between Max and the baby deepened. The baby laughed at Max's gentle nudges, cooed at his soft whines, and reached instinctively for his fur. Max responded with patience, care, and intelligence, ensuring that every interaction was safe and joyful. Amir and Sarah often reflected on how remarkable the connection was. Patience, love, and quiet observation had created something extraordinary. One sunny morning, the baby crawled toward Max on the rug. Max lay down patiently, letting the baby explore his fur. The baby giggled and rolled onto Max gently, and Max nudged him softly, showing approval and care. Amir watched, feeling a deep sense of pride and wonder. The dog had waited weeks, passed tests of patience, and now acted as the baby's constant companion, protector, and friend. Sarah smiled, brushing her hand over Max's fur. "He has waited so long," she said softly. "And now he is here, with the baby every moment." Amir nodded, realizing how much Max had contributed to their family's happiness. Max had shown that love, patience, and loyalty could create bonds deeper than words. Even at night, Max's vigilance never wavered. The baby slept peacefully in the crib, and Max lay nearby, eyes half closed but alert. The soft sound of his breathing was a comfort to the family. Whenever the baby stirred, Max nudged him gently or rested his head nearby, offering warmth and safety. The small house was quiet but full of trust and love, built through weeks of waiting, observation, and careful guidance. By the end of the story, the family felt complete. Max had become more than a pet. He was a guardian, a teacher, and a friend. The baby had found someone to trust, love, and grow with. Amir and Sarah had witnessed something extraordinary, the result of patience, loyalty, and quiet care. The bond between dog and child was unbreakable, a connection that promised happiness, safety, and joy for the years to come. In the quiet house on the small street, Max lay near the baby, tail resting gently, eyes alert and full of love. The baby smiled, reaching for Max instinctively, cooing softly. Amir and Sarah watched with hearts full of gratitude. Patience had brought them to this moment. Love had created the bond. Loyalty had made it strong. And in that moment, the family felt united, whole, and filled with quiet joy that would last a lifetime. Max had waited weeks. The baby had learned trust. Amir and Sarah had seen the power of patience and love. Together, they had created a home where every heart felt safe. Every moment was filled with joy, and every day promised new adventures and happiness. The story ended, but the journey of love, care, and loyalty would continue every day. Max had become a hero in quiet ways, a guardian of the small and fragile, and a true part of the family. The house was full of warmth, laughter, and life. And as the sun set outside, the baby slept peacefully. Max lay faithfully nearby, and Amir and Sarah smiled, knowing that together they had created something extraordinary.